Production funding for Making It Up North is provided by the citizens of Minnesota through the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund.
You're gonna borrow how much money to do this? You're crazy, don't do that.
When you start a creative business, there's a huge amount of risk. The people that you're about to meet took a chance. They took their talent and their passion and they put it into practice.
All right, I think we're gonna go for it here.
Well, this episode is for risk takers and people who see a chance and are willing to take it. Dan Neff, you're one of those people.
I guess so.
So tell me what possessed you to start a hot shop or take over a hot shop in Duluth.
Yeah, it was always part of the business plan. I knew that I wanted to have a fully functioning hot glass studio, from the flame working to the furnace glass blowing, and it was just the right opportunity at the right time. It had been, in the cards for a long time. I didn't know quite how I was going to make it happen, and Tony Scorza, an artist who moved up to Duluth and moved his studio here, a good friend of mine, and we've shown his work in our gallery for years, decided he wanted to go out to California and asked if I wanted to buy the hot shop, and I said, well, yeah.
So what's the most telling difference between a hot shop and what you have on Superior Street?
The way I explain it is it's detail versus scale. So with the flame working that we do downtown at our main location, you can get a lot of detail in the work, and you can get larger, but the trade-off is you can't do like a big vase or a bowl. Something with a lot of surface area just isn't gonna stay hot in the flame of a torch. And so you get to the hot shop here, that's when you can start doing the vases, the bowls, any of those bigger pieces. And you can still get detail in the hot shop, but not as easily with the torch. And so yeah, detail versus scale is how I break it down. What
kind of foundation do you need to even think that this is a good idea?
A strong work ethic and just the ability to not know failure. Failure is not an option, and so you just have to stick to your plan and see it through, and that's kind of always been my mantra from day one, before I knew it was my mantra.
So are you going to take over the world of glass?
I don't know about that. Chihuly's kind of a big name to come after, but at least as far as the Midwest goes, and especially Duluth, and just making us a destination when folks visit Duluth, that they come take a class with us or stop in and see the new work or just watch a demonstration. We just love to connect people to that process.
Cool. You do it well.
When you pass through the front gates, you are immediately transported out of Carlton and into a different world.
Cooking at the O is the dream of Glenn and Emily Swanson, and a collection of supporters drawn into the energy and the spirit of Oldenburg House. The host stacks the deck with a wealth of connections, decades of experience, and a true passion for music.
Jazz is being fully present in the moment.
So I start off this new life, I'm just gonna sing.
Once someone is exposed to it, it becomes infectious.
Just gonna sing. So how perfect is it for me to be at the open bird, cooking at the old this night, this thing,
Because it's real, it's alive, it is so really such a cool thing.
Because I don't have my man, but I got the Lisa bed in the blue room.
We just transformed our home into a jazz club.
Let's just move the kit right now. So this is open, so we'll go through that door with the furniture and stuff.
Once a month, in the off-season, the living room and dining rooms are cleared of books, furniture, and plants to make room for the fun. The stage is custom built to fit in the tightest corner.
Now it's about getting Ryan in here.
Isn't that so good?
This time, a 3-course meal starts with Emily's homegrown herbs, her research and recipes. A professional chef develops the rest, including a breakfast scone for the morning after. Community partners include the Carlton Coffee Shop, a Duluth brewery, and a smokehouse.
Don't worry. I always tell people, everything I say starts with please, ends in thank you. You're not gonna hear it every time. You, this, you, that. Bring in some cheddar.
The community has been unbelievably supportive, even if jazz isn't particularly their thing.
Everybody has some kind of art that they bring forward, and this seems to be a place where they get to let loose a little bit and bring a creative spark.
I'll be here at 6:30.
We had so many conversations for such a long time about what does this place want us to do.
The space is saying, hey, bring people here, bring people together.
And so every time we get ready to do this Cooking at the O, it's just kind of like, this is gonna be fun.
And so, in a community of less than 1,200 people, there's now a world-class jazz club in Carlton.
On the surface of things, it sounds pretty insane.
We knew going in what we were going to do and why we were going to do it. We did a very thorough business plan, had hours and hours of debate about every single piece of it.
That is maybe why I don't feel quite as hesitant or unnerved by it.
There's practice, there's calculation, there's thinking really hard, and then there's just letting it happen. And we kind of get to do that.
This is what I need to do with my life. I need to develop that side of me.
The big deal would be that you could watch musicians make it happen on the spot. And you would have chefs who were really vibing with that idea and were willing to take some risk and let the timing be the musician's timing. You know, the food has to fit in around it. There can't be much clatter. There can't be much commotion in terms of service. It needs to be a servant of the music, but inspired by the music, and it just works that way. I don't have much trepidation about it, because I think the next answer will present itself if it's not a jazz club, but honestly, I kind of think it is.
Let's talk about starting out on Superior Street.
Yeah.
What did you want to accomplish there?
I wanted to accomplish a flamework glass studio that also showcased all the types of glass art in our gallery and really build that awareness and the connection from the public to the process. And so, we really strive to train our staff on all the techniques, the artists, their stories, because that's why people buy artwork, because they're buying a part of the artist, they're buying that story and that connection. So knowing that and being an artist-run gallery, I think really sets us apart, and the fact we focus on one medium. So I just wanted to have a different twist on an art gallery in Duluth that was also a functioning studio.
If you can, take me back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What's the opportunity that brought out the what we now see as Lake Superior art glass.
Sure. The contest, the Greater Downtown Council offered the Great Space Giveaway in 2011. That was kind of this, opportunity that I saw, and I said, oh, that might as well apply for it and see what happens. And again, being 25, I didn't really know if I wanted to take that leap, but I knew I had to at least try and see what happened. So.
How has that evolved from your initial idea of being a gallery and a workspace to what it is today?
The year from when I won the contest till a year later when we opened, I think that was a lot of that transition and those ups and downs, and saying, okay, well, we've gone past this hurdle, and suddenly now there's another huge hurdle, and what are we going to do to get beyond that? And so it was just a lot of help from the city and architects and folks who could really think creatively and knew the codes to say, okay, well, there has to be a way to make this work. What's the solution? And you just can't know failure. It's just, I wasn't willing to stop at that point. It's like, well, I've gone this far. We're going to find a way to make this work.
Where is your family in all of this? Did they say you're crazy for taking out a big loan to risk this, or were they like, yeah, go ahead, it'll be easy?
Well, yeah, the first initial one was like, hey, there's this contest. Did you know about it? No, I didn't. Oh, you should apply. Okay, great, will do. Wrote the business plan, applied, got selected, and then I had to start implementing that business plan and get the financing put together. And they said, you're going to borrow how much money? And I was like, well, you have to do it right. I'm not going to go in there and do it halfway and have kind of a ragtag operation. And he's like, you have one chance to make a first impression, and so we got to do it right. And yeah, they weren't unsupportive, but they thought it was a little crazy to borrow that much money to start an art gallery and studio. And here we are over 5 years later, and grown and expanded into a second location.
Live from the Hibbing Community College Theater in Hibbing, Minnesota, this is the Great Northern Radio Show on Northern Community Radio.
When we did our first show, it was a pilot. Literally, the station was trying it out, and there was no assurance that it was going to go well at all. We had no idea whether it would be a disaster. I mean, it was one of the few times I went into something so big, not knowing at all what the result was going to be.
Forget your troubles with the people you know.
What I admire is it's easy to have the idea. It's hard to do it time after time after time after time. And now it's 6 years. It's, I don't even know how many shows, at least 20 to 40 shows, somewhere in there that you've had to do the work. And I know, talking to him and working with him, that it just has to get done.
When I'm driving around, usually Hibbing to Grand Rapids or somewhere, some range town to some range town, I have these odd bits of time, and you gotta tuck in the work wherever you can. You don't get 8 straight hours to sit and do this. You have to fit it wherever you can.
About a month before the show, I'm writing the script. And the script is a process that's about 70 pages, 6 to 7 sketches, 2 or 3 monologues, and then I figure out which music I'm going to include in the show.
Really, whether it's teaching or writing the show or writing my column, my agenda is simply to make people aware of this place.
You can't help but know a little bit about the audience and the mindset, and just kind of have a feel for the area in an affectionate way, and in the sense that you can poke fun at it. My day job is as a historian doing museum exhibits up here at the Minnesota Discovery Center, so that informs it too, that it's grounded in an understanding of the history of the area.
The few remaining traces of North Hibbing were slated for demolition, again in the name of mining. But the destruction can't erase multiple reports of mysterious hovering discs across the abandoned town site. The official explanation?
It's a disc golf course.
When he has Jason guest writing, they just do a great job taking the history and putting a fun spin on it. And I think that this script is one of the strongest. The one coming home to Hibbing, he does an amazing job.
It's a parody of the History Channel that seems to get less and less about actual history and more far afield. And it's a great vehicle to talk about local history, in this case, the Hibbing High School.
The castle in the woods stand as a proud reminder of a time when the ground shook with polka music and a mysterious architectural wonder was erected by someone, somehow.
And I've gotten to know Aaron's writing on a different level. I knew him from years ago, and he was always a great writer, but to see him and his family develop with this project has been really special. And I just think he brings a hometown balance to big city funny.
So we at the Great Northern Radio Show have a cure for what ails you, a dash of music, attempted comedy, stories from real people. After a while, you realize you're just a human, and it's all going to be all right.
Well, once you say yes to Aaron, you don't say no later on. It's a fun group. I feel like every time I learn something new from the musicians, from the other actors.
Save me, somebody save me now.
Well, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. By now, we've been through the ringer with the rehearsals. This one has been unusual in that it's gone. Oh, I shouldn't say the.
No, stop. Just stop. Come on, say it.
It went pretty good. No, this is good. This has gone reasonably well. We feel really good about it. We think it's going to work, and we really appreciate all you being a part of this.
1:45, everybody be set and ready to go. Let's have a good show. Thanks for being here.
At first, we really struggled to get people to come to the shows. It's grown, though. I mean, we definitely average close to 300 people typically at our shows now, which is remarkable, really, for what it is. It's not like we put on a play. You know, we're not in costume. It's radio, where we got our scripts up there. Part of the fun is watching the chaos of a radio broadcast.
You show up at 8:30 in the morning one day, and by 7 o'clock you've given people a show. It's somehow come together.
Hibbing High School, the castle in the woods, a marvel of construction and ornate decoration. Nearly a century after its completion, it continues to inspire admiration and awe in visitors and locals alike. History tells us that it was built with mining dollars as an inducement to move the town of Hibbing south in order to allow access to rich iron ore. But is that the real story? How could a town of poor immigrants, many of whom did not even speak American, house such an architectural marvel?
I love the ephemeral. I'm a theater person, so I love that. It's here and it's gone, and people can listen to it on the radio, and I love the idea that someone just sort of catches it in the air. And they may not know what it is, and that's great. And maybe by the end they will. So
there are some who believe that the official narrative hides a more troubling explanation.
It's a cover-up. They don't want you to know the real story. It was aliens.
We have the podcast on the website now. You can listen to the old shows, and we try to produce them to be like albums. You know, you can revisit an old show. It's not like it's overly dated. Typically, it's just life in northern Minnesota, and things that people will identify with.
You're traveling to Hibbing so fast.
I don't know what the future is, other than I have the privilege of doing this show, and I'll do it as long as they let me. And whatever comes of it is no longer important, so long as people are enjoying it. And I hear from people who contact me and say, I was in a low place and I had the radio on and this thing came on, I didn't know what it was, and it just made me glad I lived here.
Remember me to Bobby Z. He once was a true love of mine.
That's a good one. Isn't that incredible? Ah, yep. Did it again.
Yeah, she told me about this piece at the opening. It's this piece that she wanted to do, and so exciting. Actually seeing it live, and fantastic. She's amazing. Let's put it up. When I see something as fresh as Shawna's work, I just know that it's going to do well.
Woohoo!
I kind of liked the idea of these being brothers or friends, sort of getting in over their heads, and suddenly they have bunnies everywhere, and let's just put them all in the bathroom, and you know, Mom will figure out what to do later. I'm Shawna Gilmore. I'm a visual artist. I paint in acrylics, and I live in Duluth, Minnesota. I have these like storylines going on in my head. Those are the paintings I love the most, that I can get lost in it and go into all different directions. The painting is going to be called They Were Always Losing Michael. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do with the people in it once I have Michael's dad looking for him and Michael's mom, upset, and then him swinging across the background like, what's the big deal? I think humor is undervalued in art. Because I love being weird and silly and funny and playful and all those things. And obviously having kids helps with that. They really love the funny ones. Or they'll come in and be like, that's not funny, Mom. So they're my critics too. I guess I would call it contemporary surrealism, maybe. With a vintage feel.
The kind of retro quality within the work is also kind of comforting and time-honored for people. I think it takes them back to their childhood and, harkens all types of memories.
I like that you can look at them and you don't see right away, like, wait a minute, their hand. Oh, it takes a while for you to get it. I think that's interesting.
This is called Chameleon, which is actually the title of the series.
It's rooted in this desire to connect, not just connect to my environment, but sometimes disappear into it. The show has turned from this desire to sort of blend into your environment or connect to it to this whole other thing of how are we relating to our surroundings and how much a part of our surroundings are part of us.
The surreal element where her figures come in and out of different settings, that creates a really interesting narrative that I think people are really tapping into and wanting to just see more of and take into their own environments.
And also it's just kind of cool that their clothes are gone and they're in the wall. I just like that idea. Oftentimes I'll do these ones that don't really fit. They're almost like misfit paintings. And then down the line I see that they were the beginning of something else. When you're taking something seriously as your occupation, you have to force yourself out of your comfort zone and practice and get better at stuff and experiment and learn from people. It was a stretch for me at first, just putting myself out there all the time and I submitted to a bunch of different things, and my art wasn't really at a point where I should have been doing that, but I was glad I was doing it because it was challenging me to mature as a person. To be comfortable with failure, I think that's a really big deal. Learning how to take risks is like being comfortable with it not being perfect. You know what? It feels riskier to not do it for me. The risky parts, financially risky, I guess it is financially risky. I've never been somebody who focuses on money, although it's really nice. When it works out, it's really great, but it's not something I focus on because it just isn't motivating for me. I'm much more motivated by a full and satisfying life.
What's the scariest step?
Right. I was going to say there are two very different steps, I would say. The most harrowing step would be when the piece is on the punty. It's a very, very small connection point, and if it gets a little too cold or you bump it a little too hard, that vase falls off and smashes on the floor. Or worst case scenario, falls into the furnace, into a pot of molten clear glass. Then you got to scramble and pull it out of there before it melts in with all the clear. So it's definitely a piece that, kind of makes your heart race every time for the last, 5 minutes or so of the 25, 30-minute process. Maybe the most enjoyable part is when you actually go to blow it out and you see the color patterns start to emerge and you see the shape starting to take form. So that's, and it's a very safe step, it's pretty hard to screw it up there, so it feels really good, and then about 5 minutes later your heart's pounding and you're worried you're going to ruin the whole thing.
So are you a chronic risk taker?
I don't know if I'd say chronic. I like to avoid it as much as possible, but it doesn't deter me. When I can make it as calculated as I can, that sets me at ease to go for it. And again, just not knowing that failure is an option. Going into it with that mentality and saying, all right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to succeed at it, and whatever it takes, whatever roadblocks come up in the middle, that's not going to stop me. I'm not going to quit or give up on it.
Well, thank you for making our community richer for it.
Absolutely, thank you.